Mr. Willis again, and I'm here to show you a couple more tricks if you're doing a animation using Google Slides. So if you're looking at my screen here, you'll notice that I now have a couple of objects on my screen. I've got my background, that is just the outer space background that's on there. I've added a planet here. I actually looked up an image of Mars, a PNG image of Mars right there, and you see how I've zoomed it in a bunch. So that when you see the preview over here, you're kind of getting this view like just the top corner of the planet. And I've added a starship in front of the planet, and if you jump down a little further here, you'll actually see I've also added a Death Star. Now the way I'm getting this Death Star to appear from behind the planet is just making sure that things are in the right order. So maybe you've seen this on some of the other like Google drawing assignments and that kind of stuff. Anytime you put an object on your screen, like this planet, this spaceship, the Death Star, you can arrange who's in front and who's in back. So here's, for right now I'm going to click on the planet, okay? And the planet is in front of the Death Star. But if I were to right click on the planet, go to the word order, I can tell it to send it to the back, and now you see the Death Star is out in front. Similarly, I could take this planet, go to the O word order, and I could bring it all the way to the front. Now you can't see the spaceship. It's still there. It's actually here. If we pull the planet down, you can see that it's hiding back there. But it's just a way to change, the way everything is kind of arranged. I'm going to undo that a little bit and kind of get everything back to normal there. Now, if you're going to do something like this on a slideshow, what you need to understand is that I now have multiple items that I'm animating on every single slide. So let me go back to slide 1 here, and you'll see that right now the Death Star is there. It's just hidden behind the planet. And then on the next slide, I moved the Death Star forward a little bit. I also moved the Enterprise forward a little bit. The next slide, Enterprise comes forward, Death Star comes forward. So there's more stuff for you to have to keep track of, but it makes a pretty cool effect. Now, another thing I want to show you is a little further down in this one. I make use of shapes to kind of almost create some special effects. So it starts right here on this one. You'll see I'm going to have my Death Star fire its big, giant laser where it's like 5 lasers combining into one laser, even though I don't think that's how lasers work, but whatever. And so what I do there is I've just created a shape, and in this case I just made actually a line. Okay, so up here I've got shape tools, line tools. I just picked a line, I drew a short line, and then I used the line color button, the little, it kind of looks like a crayon, to pick out this bright green for my laser. I also used the line weight. Usually when you draw lines they look like this, like really, really thin, but with this button I could make the line thicker. Like I took this one up to 4, and then for the next couple frames, I'm not moving this line, but I copied it. So you see I made a copy of the line on this next frame, and I moved it right over there. Then I made another copy, and another, and another, and another, and another, and another, and then finally we have one more big line that's going to shoot the laser. So that's, you can add cool little things just using the basic, shape tools or line tools. Not everything has to be an image that you look up. Now, one more crazy trick that I've done with this video is, as you can see, the Enterprise is probably kind of doomed here. And yeah, it is. So as we move forward, here's what happens. On the next frame, I looked up, I did a little image search, and for that little explosion, all I did was image, search the web, and I typed in explosion PNG. Remember that PNG is always a good thing to add to your search terms. You can actually see there's the explosion right there that I wound up using for that. And I just made it really small. Then on the next frame, I make that explosion a little bigger, and then you'll notice I've also got the Enterprise breaking apart. Okay, and when I go a couple more frames here, you see it, like the whole thing kind of flies apart there. Now, how did I do that? Well, there's actually 2 copies of the Enterprise picture now. You see how I've got one here and got one there. So let me actually back up one more here to where we still had one. What I did is I took this one picture of the Enterprise and I made a copy of it. The way you copy it is just right click, copy, and then right click, paste. Okay, and so you see now I have two of them. You know, I can put them side by side, or I could put them right on top of each other, however you want to do that. Then to make that whole kind of explosion looking thing, I did a form of crop. Maybe you've seen me do the crop where I double click it and you get the black lines to like cut pieces off. In this case, I'm actually going to go up here to this crop button and hit the little drop down arrow. And you'll see there's not just a normal crop, but I could crop with different shapes. And for this one, I actually went down to the callouts and found one of these like kind of explosion boxes, and I cropped with that. And so you see how it's kind of, the shape is cutting off parts of it. And then because that's a crop, I can now double click and it's going to put those black squares back up, the black lines back up there. And now when I move these, you see how it's still keeping that kind of explodey outline, but I'm going to make it say, you know, keep this half of the ship intact. So maybe I'll make it a little bit taller so it keeps like all of that there, but it's jagged lines, you know, kind of going right down the middle. So now when I click over here to stop messing with the black lines, you'll see we've still got the Enterprise, and here I'll click all the way away, but there's like a jagged line there. And then I actually did the same thing with this one. I go back up to the crop image, hit the little line, I pick out that kind of explosion crop, double click, oops, not double click the explosion, double click the ship there, and move those black lines over. Now this time I want to have more of the back side of the ship, so I'm going to make sure that the front side is all cut off, the back side is still there, and there we go. So now I have two pieces of the ship, and from that point forward it was just a matter of, you know, arranging these. I start with them pretty close together, and then as I start going forward, I move them apart a little bit, and then I just keep moving them further apart. And then at the same time, that explosion, the PNG that I looked up here, I'm just making this one a little bit bigger each time. I'm just using the little blue boxes here to stretch it out a little farther with every single frame, so that as we keep going, the pieces of the Enterprise keep flying away, the explosion keeps growing, and you've got a pretty crazy looking effect right there. Okay, and I've also got another spaceship flying in. So at this point, like, I'm animating an explosion, two pieces of a starship, and another spaceship flying in from Battlestar Galactica, apparently. So the more stuff you add, yes, it looks cool, but you need to know you're going to have some work. There's going to be a lot of things to do. Now you can see why animation is so tedious and why it takes so much work in order to put these things. Just imagine what the guys at Pixar are doing. All right, have fun.